Something I've noticed about narcissists is they seem to be virtually the opposite of empaths. People with Asperger's syndrome are just the opposite of a narcissist almost always. And so some of these things that we talk about with narcissists, we could say the same thing about empaths, only in reverse. But there are some things, the reason I say that is there are some things that people who are narcissistic worry about. I mean, they fret over these things. In the front of their mind, they ruminate over these things almost constantly, but empaths, never. Well, I shouldn't say never, but they almost never cross their minds. Well, what are these things? Well, I came up with 7. And I'm sure there are many more, probably 70 or maybe 700, but these are 7 that came to my mind. These are things that narcissists worry about, and number 1 is they are concerned about others' opinions. Now stop and think about this for just a moment. Do you care what other people think about you? Well, doesn't everybody to some extent? I mean, if you go outside in the middle of the winter, and I've seen people do this. They're wearing short sleeves, and they're wearing shorts, and they're wearing sandals, and it's snowing outside. They don't seem to care what anybody else thinks because they're perfectly happy, they're perfectly comfortable in their own skin, and that's about all they got. You know, I saw a guy at Walmart one time, like early in the morning. I was going in, or late at night, like 2 or 3 in the morning when they were still open those hours. And man, it was cold outside. It was freezing. And this guy came out, he was wearing shorts. So I just had to say something, and I did. I said, "Man, aren't you cold?" He said, "Yeah, well, whatever. This is what I wear." He's perfectly happy. He didn't care what other people think. Now, when it comes to people with narcissism, who are narcissistic, they are compulsively obsessed with what other people think about them. And because of that, this is based on my life experience. You know, I'm nearly 70 years old. 7 decades I've been observing in Life's Laboratory, not only a narcissist, but just the world in general. And one thing I've learned about narcissists, in fact, this is one way you can kind of sense, detect who is and who is not a narcissist, is they are overly obsessed with what other people think about them, how other people perceive them. Not so, or at least not so much, with empaths. So they care about their position at work if they manage to keep a job. Speaking of narcissists, they care about that they are high on the social pecking order. It's very important to them that their opinions count more than everybody else, and you could go right down the list of all the things. But they are obsessed with the opinions of others. They're worried about that. I can't imagine. I'm sorry, I just can't imagine that my whole life would be consumed with what other people thought of me, worried about what others considered that I was doing right and wrong. So a narcissist is somebody who thinks he or she is perfect, and everyone else has to think the same thing too, and if they don't, they worry about it. Number 2 is this: competition and social climbing. Narcissists tend to, covert and overt narcissists, tend to be obsessed with being at the top of the heap, socially, top of the heap, all the time, everywhere you can imagine. So you probably saw a lot of this when you were in school, particularly in high school, you know, where this is kind of natural peer pressure and kids try to compete with each other to see who's the most cool. I don't know why that is. It's just the way our brains are made. When you get to adolescence, that competition thing kicks in, and sometimes we're overly cruel, just so that we can have a little bit of self-esteem and be a little bit higher on that social hierarchy. Well, people with narcissism, it seems like they don't grow out of that. I mean, by the time you're 25 years old, neurologists tell us that your brain is totally developed. I mean, that's as good as it gets. It's not going to get any better. And if you're stuck there, that's where you're stuck. And it seems to me that narcissists are stuck with that adolescent brain. You know, they're just always trying to climb the social hierarchy a little bit higher, and they're worried about that. And they see life as a competition. And they see everyone else as their competitors. And that's where the smear campaign comes in. They're trying to hurt their competitor. That's where outperforming everybody else comes in, because everyone else is their competitor. That is where self-promotion comes in, sometimes very directly, sometimes very subtly. But it's because they see life as a competition. They're worried about that. So there are two things that narcissists worry about. And the third thing is they have these internal conflicts that are prompted by social pressure. And they worry about that. I suppose some narcissists, and I say some because I don't know all of them, there are billions of them, maybe millions of them on the planet. But it seems to me, just based on life's experience, that they have these internal conflicts that are prompted by social pressure that compels them to stay up at night and worry about social climbing. Now, I think maybe everyone has had this experience at some point of another where you may have been snubbed or somebody may have said something to you and you got in this little verbal conflict, or maybe you should have. And maybe late at night where your mind is clear, you start thinking about that, reminiscing, ruminating about that event that happened maybe earlier that day or maybe earlier, a week or so ago. And you're thinking, yeah, I should have said this, or I should have put that guy down by saying that. And yeah, I think everyone does that. But imagine if you're a narcissist and you're obsessed with that. I mean, all day, every day. How do these people sleep? I have no idea. I had a, quote, friend, unquote, who I later learned was almost certainly a narcissist. And I said something to this guy that he took offense. It didn't even occur to me that he found this offensive until, like, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 months ago. He said the same thing back at me. I didn't know I bothered him, but the point is he had been harboring that for months. It just drove him crazy, and finally he got back. He got back at me, tit for tat. Yeah, I know everyone does that to some degree, but we're talking about narcissists here, and they're obsessed with this stuff. So they worry about that constantly. And if you offend them, at least based on my experience, if you offend them in the slightest, that just sticks in their brain. It's like it's got super glue on it, and it's not going anywhere till they resolve it. It is just there. Now, if you stop and think about that, what offends a narcissist? Just about everything. And who offends a narcissist? Well, just about everybody. So they got a lot of these things. I don't know what you call them, but these offenses in their minds. There must be hundreds or thousands of them. What a miserable life that must be. But they worry about these things. And much of their life is dedicated to getting people back. Much of their life, from my experience, as I watch them, is, dealing a blow to that person who offended them because, well, they're perfect. You don't offend a narcissist. How dare you? How dare you say anything or do anything that would disagree with them or in any way whatsoever make them appear to be less than the super person they really are. But if you do, and I guarantee you will if you're around these people, they cling to that. They hang on. It may be years later before they get you back. And they worry about that stuff. Doesn't that make you, that alone should make anybody glad that they are not a narcissist. And if you are a narcissist and are willing to admit it, which probably won't happen, and you find that you are obsessed with this ideation of payback, tit for tat payback, that alone should be enough to compel you to go talk to a therapist. And I hope you do. And by the way, there are some narcissists who do talk to therapists and try to get resolution. I've never heard of one, but I'm just assuming that happens. So, there is some hope. Number 4 is they worry about what I would call conversation and acceptance. That a person with narcissism is always obsessed with the way they talk, with what they say, to whom they say it, to how they're being perceived when they say it. At least the narcissists that I have met, and I kind of mentioned this in the last thing I was talking about, but you don't ever disagree with a narcissist. It makes them mad. Makes them angry. How dare you? Because this person, they're just perfect in all their ways. It is highly offensive. They worry about this stuff. They worry about conversations. They worry about what they talked about yesterday, what they're going to talk about today. and what they're going to talk about tomorrow, and make sure that everything they say is said in such a way that they are viewed to be in the brightest of lights. They are the eminent, they're the brightest star in the room. They're obsessed with this stuff, and they worry about it. I guess everybody worries about that to some degree. I mean, nobody wants to say something that is offensive or a faux pas. Well, maybe some people like to do that, but by and large, nobody wants to put their foot in their mouth, so to speak, but worry about it constantly. I mean, to be obsessed with that all the time. Now, stop and think about the narcissist in your life. What they said to them was really important. And what they said to you, are you thinking about this? Because I really want you to focus on this. Do you remember having a conversation with a narcissist and they would say something out of the air that was just kind of highly offensive and toxic, just to kind of get a rise out of you, just to kind of like somebody poking you with a needle just to watch you jump? Chances are, maybe not, but chances are that is because you have said something to them that bothered them. Well, now it's payback time. Now it's tit for tat time. Number 5 is they worry about what I would call just thinking. Narcissists, the ones that I have met to varying degrees, but they are obsessive in their thoughts. What are they thinking about? Well, they're thinking about their ego. They're thinking about themselves. But they don't think they're thinking about themselves. They think they're just thinking rationally and clearly. And rationally and clearly is, to a narcissist, thinking about themselves. And they worry about that. So they spend much of their thinking time worrying about how they're going to advance themselves. Now, I don't know about you, but I got better things to think about than how everybody else is going to perceive me. I care a little bit about that. I think it's natural for people to care a little bit about their perception to others. I think that is why we try to stay in style. Now, a person with Asperger's syndrome, I got to admit, I'm just not as compulsive about being in style as everybody else. I got my sweatshirt, I got my sweatpants. They're comfortable. That's style. As far as I'm concerned, okay, if I go to a special event like a funeral or wedding, I will respect other people, put on a suit, tie, try to look nice, maybe even, extreme situations, may even comb my hair. But people who are narcissists, this is a compulsive thing. An overt narcissist in particular, they have to look perfect all the time. And by the way, there's nothing wrong with looking nice. Nothing wrong with enhancing your product, so to speak. That does not make you a narcissist. But a person who is a narcissist, they are obsessed with their thinking. They are obsessed with being accepted. They're obsessed with what other people think about them. All right, let's go down to number 6. They worry about, it seems that they worry about honesty because they are so dishonest. Now, this is, in my opinion, life's laboratory. I'm pushing 70 years old. I've seen a thing or two, sharing with you what I've seen. I'm not talking about an academic study here. I'm just talking about, what I've observed, what I've learned through life. And what I've learned through life is that empaths tend to be very honest. People with Asperger's syndrome, people with autism tend to be honest even to a fault, even to where it's painful. Where a person who is a psychopath or a person who is a narcissist, truth is not even optional. Truth exists to be utilized when it can be utilized to the narcissist advantage. That's all it's there for. That's it. I mean, their entire lives are lies. So they necessarily have to be obsessed, in my way of thinking, they have to be obsessed with honesty because they are so dishonest. They have to be fearful. They have to be worried constantly because their life is a lie, that they're going to be found out. And sometimes they are. Now, I know extreme narcissists who, narcissists typically, particularly psychopaths, they think rules are for everyone else. They think they are so smart that they can just bypass the rules and they won't get caught. or they can worm or wiggle their way out of the ramifications of breaking the rules. So truth is an option for them. But because of that, they worry about getting caught because they know they are on the wrong side of truth. And what do? Well, they try to enhance their position by exaggerating the truth or distorting the truth in such a way that it would fit their personal narrative that makes them look good. That, by the way, is what the smear campaign is all about. After you've been discarded, or maybe even before you have been discarded by the narcissist in your life, he or she goes about a smear campaign, which is lying by and large, or distorting the truth, or lying by omission. They're being dishonest. And they absolutely positively got to be worried about being found out. Because the whole idea of a smear campaign is to be dishonest, to destroy you so nobody will believe you. Well, what if the truth gets out? Because the whole idea, again, is to hide the truth. Well, what if it leaks out? What if it gets out? They got to worry about that, you know? I know narcissists in extreme cases who have compiled over the years public records, court documents, where they have been sued over and over again. That's got to worry these people because the truth is out there and because the foundation of their lives, the undergirding that holds them up, you know, their narrative up in the air that they are just so wonderful. It's all a lie. Now, there may be some ounces of truth in there somewhere mixed in to give it credibility, but it's all a lie. They got to worry about that. There is nothing that scares a narcissist anymore than an honest person. So if you want to terrorize or terrify, I should say, a narcissist, don't play games with them. Just tell the truth. Be honest. Because the thing about the truth is, you can't catch somebody in a lie when they're telling the truth. Now, you can try to do that. You can pretend to do that, and narcissists will, by the way. But the truth is the truth, you know, and there's only one version of it. And it's really hard to trick somebody into telling two versions of the truth that are inconsistent. In fact, I don't even think that's impossible. The point is that narcissists worry about this stuff. But because you are an empath, if you are an empath, you don't have to worry about the truth because you're honest. Number 7 is this. People with narcissistic syndrome, make up a new term there, these people are worried about being validated. I mean, they're worried about being accepted because the whole idea of doing what they do, you know, their deception, the false face that they wear, the stage makeup that they wear, the costume that they wear, the fake personality, the role playing, that is all based upon an inner desire for self-esteem, which they will acquire through validation. People, or I should say, they need people to praise them. They need people to admire them. They need people to think that they are the greatest on earth. They absolutely, positively need that, and they worry. At least every narcissist I have met worries about being found out. They worry about this. But if you are not a narcissist, if you're an honest person, you're an empath, you do what's right, suffer the consequences, why would you worry if somebody finds you out? I mean, if you are an honest person and you are a person who doesn't cheat and steal, what are you going to do if somebody finds you out? You're going to be pleased as punch, right? Hey, somebody discovered that I'm honest. Sorry, narcissists do not have that privilege. Do you see those two rectangles on the screen? If you like what you've heard and you want our conversation to continue, all you got to do is click on one of those rectangles. We keep on talking, but if not, thanks for stopping by, and we will see you all next time.